So good morning, everyone. Happy to have you back in the fifth class of the training, measurement, and evaluation. Before we move on to what we have in store for today, let's quickly do a recall as to where we are with with respect to the syllabus. So this is all we've covered so far. Today we'll again look at some more evaluation models. I know all of these models sound quite similar, and they are also. And the objective is to understand and see what is useful for your business or wherever you're working. And you can use either one or a group or a mix of all the models. So these were some of the models that we discussed today. And here is a quick summary of each of those models. So we spoke about Kirkpatrick. We also spoke about the variation, the New World Kirkpatrick model. Then we spoke about Philip, Brinkerhoff's model, Zero model, Kaufman model. And as I said, each of these models are, okay, my audio is distorted. Okay, just give me a minute. Maybe it seemed like last time. Just give me a minute, please. All able to hear me? If you all can confirm, then we can get started.
And the voice is clear, but I think it is like at my end, it's like it's raining at my location. So maybe that is the reason for me. A little bit of distortion is there. However, I guess like for others, I think it should work.
Sorry, I think I...
Recording in progress.
Ma'am, there is a voice issue. Some cases, your voice is disturbance.
Is my audio any better? Is the audio any better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine, ma'am.
Okay, and I don't think you're sharing, you're seeing my screen, right?
Yeah, ma'am, your screen is not visible at the moment.
Oh, okay, perfect. I think now it's sorted and I should be able to move forward. Just give me a minute. I'll bring up my screen. Is my screen up? Okay, good. So I don't know how much of it you heard, but then I think what I was talking to you all about was how much we've covered in the syllabus and what is the plan for today. And then I also moved on to quickly look at what all evaluation models we looked at in the last class. We spoke about Kirkpatrick, the New World Kirkpatrick model as well, then Philip ROI, Brinkerhoff's Zero model, and Kaufman model. We also looked at few scenarios where we discussed what could be the possible model that we could use in those scenarios. I think we did 2 or 3 scenarios last week. So any questions so far before we move on to what we have in plan for today, as I said, we will look at more models. We will look at Anderson, AIOU, success case method. So quite a few models that we will look at today. But before I start and venture into that, any questions any of you have? If you could, we could discuss. Else we can move on to the next set of models that we have. Okay, I'm assuming silence would mean no questions. So on that note, let's get started. So what we're going to talk about today, the first model that we will discuss today is the Anderson model. So I'm sure, in today's competitive business environment, and many organizations, or almost all organizations, invest heavily in training and development. And why is that? That's because to enhance employee skills and drive better performance. And it's very crucial to ensure that these learning initiatives are not only improving individual capacities or capabilities, but also contributing to the broader organizational goals. And this is where Anderson's model of learning evaluation comes into play. So this model emphasizes the value of learning. And how does it do that? By focusing on how well training aligns with organizational strategic priorities and how much it contributes to business success. Is there a question that... Jitendra, you have a question? Did I... Okay. I thought, yeah, sure. So where was I? Yeah. So as I said, this model, unlike traditional models that only evaluate participant satisfaction or knowledge retention, Anderson's model looks deeper into the business impact of learning. This model consists of 3 key stages, which you see on the screen, each of which helps organization determine the effectiveness and strategic alignment. So let's look at each of these 3 stages. The first stage is determining the current alignment of training with strategic priorities. So in this first stage, the organization examines how well its training and development initiatives align with broader strategic goals. And what is the goal? The goal is to ensure that the learning efforts are designed to address the key business priorities. So it's mainly the checking of alignment. Again, let's go back and take some examples, and let's assume, suppose, let's assume a company has a strategic objective to expand into international market. It's a domestic company and they strategically want to expand into international markets. In this case, the training program should focus on skills that would require them to reach. It could be mostly, maybe can you give me an example? What could be the training focus? What should the focus of the training programs be on?
I'm on learning as many, like if the training is for the purpose of transferring information, so 100% people should be, by the end of the training they should be aware upon the information. Or if it is upon the process training, then they should understand the process completely.
Okay, yeah, but my question is, it's a domestic company right now, and there, as an organization, their strategy is that they want to enter the international market. So if you are a training manager and you hear that you are a domestic company and your organization leadership tells you that the focus is to enter international market, as a training department, what are the kinds of training you will focus on?
Intercultural trainings would be something I think we'll focus first, because there would be a difference in the culture when we are crossing the international borders. So I think that should be the priority.
Then it can be
Perfect,
the
yes.
current marketing trends, or the what are the marketing trends going on, what they are relying upon. Is it the paper format marketing, mouth to mouth marketing? So they're trying to analyze that market, that in marketing trend, how's the market there.
Perfect. So I think you understand, and you get the drift. So yes, it could be the training program should focus on skills such as cross-culture communication. What are the market entry strategies? Maybe international sales techniques. So these are some of the trainings that you would focus on. And if the training is aligned,
Yeah, another kind of training that I feel would be the language training as well. So if it's a US or a UK market, probably English would be the language. So that shouldn't be a challenge. But when we're entering into French market or probably European market or Japanese or Chinese market, then the language training also comes into play because their English is not the predominantly used language. So we'll have to adhere to the language of that particular territory as well.
perfect. Thank you for sharing that, Jitendra. So yes, so as long as you from the training department understand that it is aligned, if the training is aligned with the strategic goal, employees will be better equipped to drive companies' expansion efforts. And that would mean that you from the training department are working with and towards the alignment of training with strategic priorities. So ensuring that the learning is relevant and impactful. So by evaluating the current alignment of training with strategic priorities, organization can ensure that learning contributes to achieving companies' long-term objectives rather than just addressing immediate skill gaps. So if you are working for a small organization or a medium scale organization, it's always and where you have good visibility to what's happening in the organization, you can have some strategic conversations with your leadership to see what is their goals. Many a times you can recommend saying that we'll be able to help you if we know what the bigger picture is, what is the plan for 2025, how can and how can we from learning help the organization achieve their goal. So that's something that we from the training department can proactively take up and offer to the business to our business, to our stakeholders, to the leaders, so that we make our presence felt, because training should not just be a group which does a list of 10 trainings every year. We should elevate from that level to a level where we are strategic business partners, where we help business grow, where we help business make money and not just be a cost center. Okay. So can we move on to stage 2? The stage 2 is using a range of methods to assess and evaluate the contribution of learning. So once the alignment of strategic priorities is established, the next stage involves assessing the actual contribution of learning to employees, to employee performance and overall business outcomes. So here organizations use a variety of methods to evaluate the impact of training programs. These methods can include assessments, performance reviews, on-the-job observations, and analyzing key business metrics. Going back to our example, can you tell me what could be the methods that the training team can use in this case? Not able to relate to it. So the company is trying to go from domestic to international. You have established that fact, and then you have come up with training programs that will help the organization go from ready to hit the international market. So now this is established. The next stage is assessing the actual contribution of learning to employee performance. So how will you know whether your training is impactful? What methods will you use? Will you use feedback? Will you use sales numbers? Will you take feedback, customer experience feedback? So it could be customer experience if you hit the international market, the training that you've done on culture, that will help you understand the feedback score, the customer satisfaction scores, the sales numbers. So all that will help you understand whether whether your training initiatives that you've taken were relevant or not. Okay. So moving on, the last stage is establishing the most relevant approach to your organization. The final stage involves tailoring the evaluation approach to the unique needs of the organization. Different organizations may have different priorities, and therefore the evaluation methods and focus areas should be customized accordingly. And what does it mean? It means identifying the most relevant approach for measuring the value of learning within the specific organizational context. So not everything works for every context. I think we've discussed this in the previous classes also. What might work for one organization may not work. Somebody was talking about door-to-door sales. That might work for some products, some organizations, but it may not work for some. For some, online marketing might help, but for some, it may not. So it's crucial in this stage, it's very crucial to ensure that the evaluation methods are aligned with specific goals of the organization. It's very customized. So overall, what this model says, Anderson's model says, is it has to be extremely customized approach to help measure the true value of learning as it relates to the organization's unique mission and objectives. We also talk about, I think with this, any questions on this? And just to conclude, Anderson's value of learning model, it offers a comprehensive approach to evaluating the effectiveness of learning and development programs by focusing on their strategic alignment and business impact. And by following these three stages, organizations can ensure that their learning efforts provide real value and contribute to overall business success. And it goes beyond, like Kirkpatrick, we call them all traditional learning evaluations. This model goes beyond that, as it's not just talking about at an individual level, but it focuses directly tied to the organizational strategic goal and long-term success. So that's the differentiator. Any questions, any thoughts? Do I see anything on the chat? Okay. Are we all clear with Anderson's model? If we are, then I'll move on to our next model. Okay. So I'm assuming that means yes. So the next model is AEIOU evaluation model. So the AEIOU evaluation model is a framework which is primarily used in educational and organizational settings. Anybody from education background here? From the anybody? If you could raise your hands. Nobody from education? Okay. So this is primarily used in education and organizational settings to assess the effectiveness of programs or initiatives. It provides a structured approach by focusing on 5 key components. And I think you see all the 5 key components on the screen, which is accountability, effectiveness, impact, organizational context, and unanticipated outcomes. This model helps evaluators not only measure the success of a program, but also understand the broader implications within the organization or a system. So this model is particularly valuable when evaluators want a holistic approach or a holistic view of the program's performance. And that includes unexpected results that may arise. So each component of the model serves as a lens through which the program is assessed. So let's take each of the 5 separately with examples. Maybe we'll take different examples. Maybe I'm not sure if the same example is helping us understand. So maybe for each, let me take a different example and see if that resonates better with all of you. Okay. So let's start with accountability. This component focuses on whether the program or the initiative is fulfilling its stated goals and objectives. It's about ensuring that the resources, and the resource can be time, money, effort, invested in the program are being used responsibly and that the program is delivering on its promise. So let's take an example of an organization which is launching a leadership development program to improve managerial skills. So to measure accountability in this, the company would track whether the program is providing the planned training modules on time, is it within the budget. They'll also check whether participants are acquiring the leadership skills as outlined in the program. So if your goals say that they will be able to do 8, 1, 2, 3, 4 skills, are they able to acquire? So by assessing accountability, the organization is ensuring that the program is operating as planned and is adhering to its components. So that's the accountability bit. Okay. Next is effectiveness. So effectiveness examines whether the program is achieving the desired outcomes. It goes beyond whether the program is being delivered or if the program is actually working, are participants learning. So that goes a little beyond that. And to give you an example, let's take the example of customer service training program this time. So let's assume that the program, after a customer service training program, the company might measure the effectiveness by assessing whether customer service representatives are handling inquiries more efficiently, whether customer satisfaction has increased. So the focus is not whether they have understood or whether they are following. You are checking, it's going beyond that, and you're checking whether they are handling. Maybe you barge on the calls, you listen into the calls to see whether they're handling queries more efficiently, whether customer satisfaction has increased. So, and how would you do it? It could be done through surveys, it could be done through performance reviews, it could be done through calls. If it's customer service, yeah, you are doing barging on the calls, listening in. Maybe you're also tracking the number of repeat complaints or repeat calls. So that will give you an idea. So this was on a different, with a different example. If I have to go back to your leadership development example, which I gave, can you tell me how would you find out the effectiveness? Anyone? Okay, so what could you do? You could talk to you could see if there are any less escalations from the team members. Maybe you could do a survey with the employees to see how they are happy, or there are any escalations, has there any, and or if there were any conflicts or escalations in the past, has it reduced? Yes, Vikas, I see your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. It can be said that if the initiators have been increased, like the employees have tried to take the initiative for the new project, that can also judge the effectiveness of the leadership development program.
Yes, if that was one of the goals where you said that people will take more initiative, take up more responsibilities, yes, definitely that could be one of your ways of checking.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing, Vikas. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Think people, I think that's where you will, it'll be more interactive, improved overcall ratings given by the customer. Yes. Depends on which organization, or if you're referring to the managerial, because I was asking you about the first one. So if you are the first example, which I gave you about a leadership development program, how would you assess? So them taking more initiatives is a good way. Number, if our client, maybe leadership skills, if they, if your sales increase, productivity increases, less escalations, less conflicts, all that will give you a good indication that the effectiveness, that there is an effectiveness. Okay, we'll move on to the third bit, which is impact. And what does impact focus on? Impact focuses on the broader effects of the program on the organization or community. It looks at the program's long-term results and how it contributes to broader organizational goals or societal changes. So I'll give you, as I said, I'll give you a different example this time. So let's assume that it's an employee wellness program. The impact might be measured in terms of reduced employee sick days, maybe improved morale, or even increased productivity. If the program contributes to better health outcomes, it might also result in reduced healthcare costs for the company. So these are the long-term impact to the effectiveness of the program, and it's important that you look at the long-term benefits as well, and how deeply and these long-term impact, and that's the key to understanding how deeply the program is benefiting from the organization. Again, I'll go back to my question. If it's leadership development, how will you look at the impact? It could be the broader organizational goals or societal changes. What could be?
Ma'am, for the broader aspect, if we talk about as you explained, I think the impact word in that sense would be like after the training has been conducted, what is the implementation part, and how are the employees implementing that on a longer in a longer duration, and what are the challenges, evaluating the challenges, and what is the effectiveness of the program or the efficiency part, like what is like were the gaps which were addressed previously, are they covered, or are there new challenges which have come across?
Okay, will that not be effectiveness?
Ma'am, but I think why I was referring to the impact is that previously there were certain hindrance which was there, right?
Mhm.
And now those things have been for that particular purpose. We created this whole setup, right, of the programming, right, of the program. And post the program has been done, we would definitely evaluate as in once the implementation or the rollout have been done, what is it that it is creating? Is it going smoothly, or is it yet the employees are not connecting to the training which was given to them? In that context, I was trying to say that impact for
Okay,
the
sure.
longer aspect.
Yes, okay, sure. Ravi Kumar, I think you also have your hand raised.
Yes,
Please
ma'am.
go
Good
ahead.
morning.
Yeah, good morning. Yes.
So, ma'am, I've just joined a couple of minutes back. So, ma'am, whatever I've listened, I can understand the impact could be increased number of sales, maybe the customer satisfaction of a company can increase. CSR initiatives can be
Mm.
increased. The society can receive a plentiful, maybe some kind of educational as per CSR activities. It can include educational help. So these can be the societal impact. Business impact can be obviously increase in revenue, employee satisfaction, or from the customers end, from the stakeholder of the customers, and it can be better service, better products, new products. So these things can be impact.
Perfect. I think you've captured it well, Ravi. Thank you. Because you also have your hand raised.
Yes, I would like to share like if we if a team is consisting of 10 people and inclusive of one leader, and because the other nines include and the leader also have taken the leadership development program. So what they are doing like now they will be implementing what they have learned in the leadership skills program. So when they implement it in the business, they tend to create more confidence among the clients. So when the strong relationship and the confidence has been building in the client's mindset, they will be providing more business to the not only the more business, but also, for example, like I am a part of the BPO industry. So what I have seen that when they have the confidence in the current team, the current team is reflecting their leadership skills, taking the new initiatives, taking new tasks, the difficult tasks, try to learn more. So what the business impact can be like, they will tend to provide us the more work, the more OJT will be there, and also it will ensure that the contract will renew after after its tenure. So that will be the business impact.
Perfect. I think you also got it right. So I think these responses help me understand whether you've understood it correct or not. I think, yeah, because you're right. You're talking from your industry's perspective, and that's correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Otherwise, we'll move on to the organizational context. And this component in the AEIOU is this assesses how well the program fits within the organization's culture, values, and environment. It looks at whether the program is well supported by leadership, whether it aligns with the organizational priorities, and whether it addresses the needs of the stakeholders. So anybody would like to give example for this before I move on to the U bit of it?
Yes, ma'am. The impact in organizational context will be more or less similar. Impact and in the organizational context, it would be like the HR initiatives which has been taken related to your training, that will be aligned. The business goal and the employees' goals will be aligned. The employees will feel more motivated. Okay, they will feel valued. So these can be organizational context, and that is also impact, ma'am. Like impact also in the organizational context.
No, there's a slight difference here with the impact. See, impact is how it is benefiting. Here you are checking whether let's say you have a manager, let's go back to my first example of leadership development program. So you're doing a leadership development program, whether your leaders are supporting, whether your top leaders know about that program or not, whether they are talking about the program, whether they are coming to the session and saying, hey, everybody, this is a very important session. You all are chosen for it. So that's the culture fit. So that, whether they are talking about the values, it shows whether there is, in the organizational context, if the if the head of the company comes to the training program and say, I support this program, and it's really going to be helpful, that would tell you whether it is. So that's the organizational context. Then the employee, as a participant, I feel confident that if I'm doing this program, I have visibility. My senior leadership also know that I'm part of this program. So that's the organizational context of it. Impact, maybe if you go back to impact is what is the use, and what is the outcome of it. That's the impact. But here it's the context. So organizational context. Hope you all understood the difference between impact and context.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So
I'm a bit confused, ma'am. Can you please explain organizational context again?
Impact is, it focuses on the broader effects of the program on the organization or the community. So let's assume that there are 10 people who attended the leadership development program, where you taught them or you spoke about managerial skills, and after 2 years you check, or maybe after a year, not 2 years, maybe 6 months or 8 months, in the next promotion cycle, out of 50 employees, and out of the 10 participants, you see that 7 were promoted. So that means that they have developed their organizational skills, and that's the benefit. And you see that the 7 people or 10 people who attended, their teams have better scores. You see that there is an improvement in the teams that these 10 people are leading. So that's the impact bit of it. And because of which, if you are getting more business, so if you're getting brand loyalty, people are focusing, in after the training, you see that there is a sudden improvement in the way people, you have more repeat customers. So that's the impact bit of it. Are you clear on the impact bit?
Yes, I'm clear.
Okay, so the organizational context is, you are checking whether the program is fitting with your organizational culture, values, and environment. So here you are looking at whether your leadership is supporting your program or not, whether it aligns with your organizational priorities or not. To go back to the first one where we spoke about international, so here whether it is aligned or not, you're checking. In the context, you're checking whether it is aligned or not, whether your leadership is supportive of your training program or not, whether whether the topics covered in the training align with your culture. So if you have an open door policy, is that covered in your, is the theme of your training program covering your culture? Does it talk about open door policy, or is it saying something totally different, which is not your company, which doesn't match your organizational culture?
Okay, got it.
So that's the bit. Here it's your checking about the context. There it is the impact.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. The last point is unanticipated outcomes. So unanticipated outcomes are the unexpected results of the program. And unexpected results doesn't have to be negative always. It can be both positive and negative. These are the outcomes that were not originally planned as part of the program's objectives, but emerged as a result of its implementation. Have you ever had certain, have you all experienced at any point, any of your programs? So I'll give you an example of what happened in one of the companies I was working for. We did an outbound training program for all the leads. And the objective was we were seeing a lot of attrition and we thought we will do a case study. So we designed a case study which will bring down attrition. So we said we used a fictitious name, but the figures were from our organization. So we gave them the figures and then we said, this is, and people were not also coming on time. So there were two issues we were trying to, and we created a case study with that. And we didn't tell them it's about our organization, but we gave them. And they saw it, they focused on it, and then they came up with solutions. So that was all happening. And maybe after 2-3 months, we realized that the whatever was the intended outcomes, we were able to reach. I think at least the time bit of it, people started coming up on time because towards the end of it, they realized that it was we were talking about our organization. But what we didn't expect was that people bonded so well during that program that they were and we were an outbound center. Our main office was in the US and we were a support team working for our US insurance company. So then and whatever would happen is if there was a query, it would come to one team in India and the team would go back to the team in the US and that team would reach out to team B in India. So there was no inter-team collaboration. But that plan, we didn't, we weren't even looking at that. But after that training, we realized that everybody got together so well during the case that they started collaborating. So, and that US team, which was, they came back and said, earlier it used to take us 3 days because we would go back and forth the target, reaching out to different teams. But now we see that there is so much of cohesiveness. The team is working so well together. What did you do? And we realized we didn't do anything. And then we finally figured that it was this training that helped us do that. And that was nowhere in our minds. But that was the unanticipated outcome. And then we said, maybe we should do more of this with that outcome in mind. So that's an example for unanticipated outcome. Sometimes it could backfire also. So there could be positive and negative experiences as well. I'll give you a negative example also. So we said this was long back. Now things have changed. But I think this was almost 10, 12 years back. So there was this HR, there was some conference that we sent our employees to. And we sent almost 7, 8 people we nominated from our organization. And after a month, we saw 4 of them left the organization. They networked so much and they were able to find good opportunities elsewhere and they left the organization. So that was also not a positive outcome. But yeah, so there are certain negative outcomes also that happen. And understanding that there could be negative or positive, there could be unexpected outcomes from this can also help organization adapt and refine programs to maximize benefits and minimize any unintended consequences. So just to conclude, AEIOU evaluation model, it offers a very comprehensive approach to program evaluation by focusing on multiple dimensions, that is AEIOU, and it evaluates, the model helps evaluators assess not only whether the program is working, but also how it fits into the larger organizational framework. Any questions, any thoughts, any experiences you would like to share?
Ma'am, it's not a thought that I would like to share. It's just an example, like you were just asking.
Sure.
So, like one of the examples, I think unanticipated outcomes, it can be that the number of new joinee programs can reduce can get reduced from training perspective, because the previous trainings might have given so much confidence and satisfaction to the current employees that there are no hirings for the next 1 year. So that might be an unanticipated outcome, that there are no new joinees and hence there has been no induction programs in the last 6 months or 1 year. Although it is
The
good or bad,
unexpected
that depends.
but yeah,
That it can happen, right, ma'am? So that can also be
yeah,
put into this category.
yeah. If you have experienced it, yeah, it could, but it's very unlikely that you don't have a new joiner because it's not good for the organization's growth. It's always good to have the good blood, new blood in the organization. But yeah, that could be, if it's totally, and that's why it's called unexpected. So if it happens, yeah.
Right, ma'am. It was just a thought, ma'am.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
never
you're
happened.
right. As I said, it could be a very negative outcome, but yeah, it could be, as it's unanticipated, you never know. Maybe it did. You're right. That could be it. Okay, moving on. Let me know if it's getting too overwhelming for you all, but I understand that these are different methods and it's important for us to understand each of these evaluation methods, because end of the day, you may end up using a mixture of all models, but it's important that we get a good understanding of each of these models. And I think that's where you are all here, right, as taking up this diploma, taking up the program. I think that's important. So though it gets overwhelming, I would recommend take it in with an open mind so that you understand that these are very helpful theory, or these definitely come into use when you are doing your work. So don't treat it just like theory or models which you will never use, but use it as something that will come handy when you are doing your work. So it definitely would be of use to you. So let's move on to the next model, which is the, do I see something on the chat? Okay. Yes, Karishma, I'll respond to you separately. Then we'll move on to the success case method. So the success case method is an evaluation model. It is designed to assess the effectiveness of training and development program by focusing on the most and least successful cases. It was developed by Robert Brinkerhoff, and it offers a very practical, cost-effective approach to evaluation by identifying the best examples of success and the best examples of failure. Yes, and within a program and understanding the factors that contributed to those outcomes. And what are the key steps in this method? The key steps is focus. The first step is, it follows the typical 5 key steps. The first step is focus and plan the study. So in this step, evaluators identify the specific program or initiative they want to assess and clearly define the purpose of evaluation. They also determine the criteria for what constitutes a success and what is a failure or a non-success in the context of the program. So success and non-success can be very different. So it's very important that when you are doing this, you define what is success. If 10 people do this, it's success. If it's less than 10, it's non-success. It has to be at that granular level where you define it. So if a company wants to evaluate the success of sales program, the criteria could be sales representatives exceed the target by 50%, or decide a margin after completing the training. So that definition of that margin, what is that, is very important. So that is the key to the success of success case method. Okay. So next step is identify the success cases. In this step, evaluator identifies a small group of individuals who represent the most successful and the least successful outcomes from the program. And these are called the success cases and the non-success cases. So, going back to our sales, we have a team of, let's say 30-40 people took the training, and then there are about 5 whose teams are doing really well, whose numbers are really good. But there are again 2 or 3 who are not so successful based on the parameters that you have designed as to what that success is. So you will identify that group of individuals, both success and non-success. And then what is the next step? You will do in-depth interviews. So the evaluator conducts in-depth interviews with identified success cases and non-success cases. And the goal of these interviews is to explore what factors contributed to the success or failure and identifying specific actions or behaviors and support mechanisms that made a difference. So now, if you, yes, Ravi, you have your hand raised.
Ma'am, I was asking, like, is this a separate topic apart from the success case method of Brinker-Horse, or is it an extension of the same, these 5 steps? Because I can see that it is almost related to the Brinker-Horse 6 stages, although the last stage is missing, the payoff part. But I think is it the Brinker-Horse? I mean, can we call it a Brinker-Horse, evaluation of
This is
success?
developed by Robert Brinkerhoff. So this is also developed by Brinkerhoff.
Okay, because that's why I can see a lot of similarity
Yes.
of every stages, apart from the last one. I think payoff part is there, but return on investment wise,
Yes.
so it is like similar. That's why the confusion was there.
Yeah,
Okay, ma'am.
no confusion. It's given by him. So I was
Okay.
hoping that I was waiting if somebody will ask me the question. It is given by Robert Brinkerhoff, and hence the similarity. Okay, so then
Okay.
you will do the interviews. Where was I? Yeah. So you will figure out and you will conduct the in-depth interviews. Step 4 is analyze the findings. So after once you conduct your interviews, and interviews can be through questionnaire, through one-on-one conversations, through group conversations, surveys. There could be different ways that you do these interviews. And once you have the data, the evaluator analyzes the findings and identifies the common themes or maybe the patterns or critical success factors that contributed to the positive outcomes or that contributed to or that led to non-success cases. So they identify and analyze the findings. And as the last step, they report and share the results. So the report typically highlights key success factors, provides recommendations for improving future programs, and also shares lessons learned from both success and non-success cases. So this is a very powerful tool for evaluating the impact of training programs. And I think it can be an add-on to any evaluation model because it gives you a very good picture, especially when you talk to people to figure out how their experience was and what helped them to do their best. It will not only tell you what went wrong or what went well in the training, it will also give you some new ideas on how you can improve the training for the next year or for the next batch. So this method is especially useful when organizations want to improve the effectiveness of programs based on the real world examples. So you are trying to get the real examples, real situations, and that's where it is really helpful. So that's about the success case method. I'll take a pause and see if you have any questions. If not, we'll move on to systematic evaluation method. So systematic evaluation method, I tried figuring out who's given this, but I wasn't. I think your textbook also didn't give much information. But it's if you see, it's normally what your ADDIE model or any of the other things does. So but it's a systematic approach to training. So as per this, it ensures training programs are well planned, they are relevant, and they are effective. And by following a structured process, organizations can address specific training needs, designs, and deliver effective training. So there are again a few processes or steps involved. First one is establishing training requirements. I think in the first class, I did take you all through the training cycle, the training life cycle. So here again, when you establish training requirements, define the overall training goals based on organization needs. And this could involve understanding the skills and competencies required to achieve strategic objectives. So that's important. Next is determining training needs. So assess the specific needs of the employees by doing a gap analysis. You could find out what their current skills is, what is their desired skills, what are the desired skills that the organization wants, and the gap. And this often And you will get the inputs from where? Where will you get your inputs for your TNA?
From HRs?
Ma'am,
From
the
HR,
manager,
yes. What
from
else?
the
T&D
HR.
department.
Ma'am,
Survey?
ma'am, if we are doing it for one division, let's say we connect to their vertical head, the managers these people are reporting to, and of course, in a way, we can talk to people as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also want to give an example, like we in our industry, we generally conduct a PKT, that is a process knowledge test on a quarterly basis. That also provides us the gaps where we have to provide the training to the individuals who have not, passed or secured a certain percentage.
Okay.
Ma'am, also doing
Shortly.
the focus group discussions or just asking them fill the form there, we can get the training need assessments. I mean,
Perfect. You're right, Digvijay. I'm still not getting one important input. Where else will you get it? What is the process that happens every year and that could be a good input for you?
Ma'am,
They-
survey?
PMS,
Survey?
PMS.
Appraisals.
The appraisal of PMS.
Yeah, I think what I was looking for, your performance reviews or appraisals.
Performance. Okay.
Correct. So that is also a very important input for you to get the training needs. And then whatever all the rest of you all said is also correct. It could be from the HR, it could be from the skills assessment, it could be from the feedback. So you're all right there. Audit team, somebody said. So yeah, I think all of you that you said is right. So that's how you determine the training needs. And then you select, design and review training. You choose or create a training program that identifies or addresses the identified needs. And this includes everything: designing the content, material, methods of delivery, ensuring it aligns with the training requirements. And again, I think we've already discussed this in the first class, but it can be in-house or it can be external or internal. So if it's external, you'll follow a different process. If it's internal, you will follow a different process. But then in this step, you will select design and review training. Okay. The step 4 is
sorry, ma'am, now I got logged out. Sorry for that. Just wanted to check. You said we were missing one more option. What was that? It was related to performance of the last year. This is what we were missing.
Yes, performance
All
appraisal.
right.
Yeah.
All right, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. So I think the last step is to conduct and administer training. It's self-explanatory. So you implement the training program as planned. It involves delivering the training sessions, providing support to participants, ensuring the training is engaging, effective, taking their feedback in between. So that's the step 4. Step 5 is evaluating. You assess the effectiveness of program by measuring whether it met its objectives, whether it improved performance, or delivered the desired outcomes. So, and this step involves collecting and analyzing feedback and performing data. So here it doesn't tell you how you have to do it, but it just says that you have to evaluate your training. You can figure out different ways. It could be through conducting surveys, but by the performance data that these people, you could figure out the numbers, metrics. So there are different ways that you could find out. So the systematic approach helps organizations ensure that their training programs are well aligned and effectively measures the needs of the employees. So that's a bit on systematic evaluation. Just do a quick time check. We are at 11. Okay. How we'll go through the next model, which is system thinking approach. And system thinking approach is a way to understand and address complex issues by looking at entire system rather than isolating individual parts. So when applied to training evaluation, system thinking helps in assessing how different elements within the training ecosystem, such as organizational goals or participant experiences, content design, and delivery interact with each other. So here you don't look at it in isolation, but you look at it in a broader, and that's the system thinking approach. And all of these, especially the system thinking approach, they are not just applicable to training. You can use it in different areas. And that's where you will see that, system thinking approach is a bigger, broader approach, but they have used it in the context of training. So the three key aspects of system thinking approach in training evaluation include a questioning of boundaries. So here, what does it mean by questioning of boundaries? This involves critically examining the boundaries of the system. It questions what is included or excluded from the system being evaluated. In training, it may involve expanding the scope beyond the training event itself to include factors like organizational culture, external influences, post-training support. So here you are looking at a bigger boundary. So usually when you talk about training, when you're creating a program, you think about participants, you think about the objectives, and you check whether they are, whether they meet the objectives. But here, the system approaches, you expand your mind and you think, whether can I expand my horizon? Can I include a bigger boundary? What are the external influences that participants, what externally can be influencing the productivity? If it's sales, what can I do? Maybe can I bring a client into picture? Maybe I do a panel discussion with clients and the participants for the participants to understand the client mindset. Maybe I get, so that's you are questioning of the boundary and you're trying to do something different. So that's the first bit of it, which is questioning of boundaries. Next is exploring different perspectives. So this principle encourages looking at the system from multiple viewpoints to uncover diverse insights. So there are different stakeholders to a training program. It can be your trainers, it can be your participants, it can be managers, it can be HR teams, it can be leaders, and they have different experiences and priorities regarding the training. For HR, it could be, the objective could be very different from manager. Manager might expect different outcomes. So everybody has different expectations and different perspectives. System thinking helps in incorporating these varied perspectives. So if from a manager's perspective, if the person delivers everything on time, it's important. No, it's done. As a manager, I'm happy. But from an HR, employee well-being is very important. How are their stress levels? Are they happy? How is their mental health? All that matters, maybe from the HR angle. So there are different perspectives to it. So here in this, what the system thinking approach tells you is, when you're evaluating, consider different stakeholders have different perspectives, bring them all into one. So consider them all is what the expectation from this step is. The third is investigating relationships. So system thinking places emphasis on the relationships and interactions between different parts of the system. So in training evaluation, this means looking at how different factors like design, delivery, participant engagement, maybe workplace application are interrelated and influence the outcomes. To give you an example, let's assume it's a customer service training program. System thinking would explore how relationship between trainers, participants, environment affect the transfer of learning. For example, it might reveal that while the training is excellent, while the training was good, participants struggle to apply their new skills, maybe because they didn't have support, or there are poor management practices which didn't allow them to put their learning into practice. That's the investigating relationships. So you are trying to investigate whether all the stakeholders, everything that was involved, how well was it, how well were the relationships, how good the relationship were, and were they interrelated, and did they influence the outcome or not? So in this case, the training was good, but they weren't able to apply because of the management practices. So that could be the outcome of your investigation. So that's about system thinking approach. And there are different tools through which system thinking methodologies can be done. There are 2-3 tools they have been given in your textbook as well. There is one is soft system methodology, which is SSM. So SSM is the methodology used to address complex soft problems that involve human activities and are often characterized by different perspective and objectives. It involves using rich pictures, root definitions, conceptual models to explore the problem space. So that is the SSM. And how will you apply SSM? SSM is, and it's useful when you are evaluating training programs with multiple stakeholders, with different views on the success. So if there are multiple stakeholders with different views, this evaluation, the SSM tool helps you to include different stakeholder views, making sure that their concerns and needs are addressed. So to give you an example, let's assume, I think leadership is on my mind. So maybe let's assume corporate leadership training program. SSM would be used to gather perspectives from the participants, from the HR, from senior management, and external consultants. And by mapping out a rich picture of the training environment using root definitions, the evaluator can build a conceptual model that reflects different views on what makes the training successful. I see something on the chat. How to know what the relationship between training, design, time, etc. are good or not? If you could just elaborate on the question.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Ramesh.
Ma'am, you were telling in this investigating relationship, the last point.
Yeah.
So how to know that relationship are good or not good?
So here I think, yeah, so when you talk, the training itself was good. Let's assume you got good score, everybody understood everything, the training scores were high, they did the test right after the training, everybody scored 10 on 10, or 90% of people did score 10 on 10. But then they did not get the right support to practice them. So then the relationship is not good. You realize that the training had no issue, but when they tried practicing it, management, the infrastructure may not have been good, or the practices may not have been good, in the management practices were not good, which didn't give them a conducive environment to practice what they've learned. So I might talk of open door in my training, but then your management doesn't support that, then it's of no use. So though the training was successful, the implementation will become a challenge. So that's where aligning it to your culture, everything becomes key.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
Perfect. So I was talking about SSM. There are other tools. There is one more tool, which is critical system heuristics, CSH. These are, you may not actually need them, but it's just good to know that there are these frameworks and tools. So CHS is a framework for critically reflecting on and evaluating the assumptions that underpin the decision making and problem solving. It emphasizes uncovering power dynamics that are there in the organization, values, and assumptions that shape a system, and encourages inclusive decision making. So it's useful. CSH is useful in evaluating training programs by making explicit the assumptions and values. So you're explicitly saying that there could be some assumptions and values that underpin the program design. To give you an example, in evaluating diversity and inclusion training program, CSH would encourage evaluators to question assumptions as to what constitutes success. It might reveal that while the program increased awareness of the diversity issues, it failed to understand the power imbalance in the organization. So that could be an observation. The evaluation would then include, the evaluation team would include suggestions for changing the training content. They might say that, change the content to better address the deeper issues. So many a times we just do it as an awareness, but we don't try, especially with programs like diversity and inclusion training programs, we just do it as a check in the box. But we don't try to see how in your organization context, if there is something that should be done differently and if some customization needs to be done. And that's where I use the example of the IND training programs. Okay, the last, I think there's one more tool, which is VSM. VSM is Viable Systems Model. So VSM is a model which is used to understand and manage complexity within the organization. It describes how different part of the system needs to be structured. Yes, Ravi.
Ma'am, is it me or like I can see only the system thinking approach slide visible? So have we
Absolutely.
moved on to
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ravi. Thanks, Ravi,
बोलने
for
तो दे भाई.
sharing.
Yeah, बोलने दे भाई, बोलने दे.
Yeah,
मैं
yeah,
वही
this is
बोलने वाला
system
था.
thinking approach. I have not moved
बोलने
on from
देना यार.
system thinking approach. In system thinking approach, you have these tools.
No, ma'am,
So
I'm
the
saying whether the slide has moved on or are we still on the system thinking approach
you're
slide?
still on system thinking approach. I'm still
Right.
talking about system thinking approach. In system thinking approach, there are different methodologies like the SSM, like the CSH, and the VSM that we are talking about. So we are still in system thinking approach. I haven't moved on.
So you're talking about, ma'am, in this system only, there can be different methodologies of approach.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
So yeah, so there are three different, there are multiple, but I think your textbook covers three. So I'm just discussing the three models which are within the system thinking approach. And as I said, system thinking approach is it's not just for training. It's a very widely used approach for different industries and different contexts. In training, we spoke about the different stages, how we can use it. And now we are talking about different models within the system thinking approach. Okay, so let's move on. So in the VSM, it emphasizes the need for the systems to have clearer roles and mechanisms for communication, adaptation, and decision making. So VSM helps evaluators understand how training programs are embedded within the broader organizational system. It provides insights on how training fits into the organization structure. So that's what VSM does. So let's assume that there is a digital skills training, and VSM could be used to evaluate how well training system integrates with companies' operations across regions. Evaluator would look at how training programs communicates with the local offices, how it adapts to the regional needs, how decisions about training delivery are made and executed. So that's what the VSM model would do. So they're all part of system thinking approach. And so system thinking approach, just to conclude and help you get the connection between system thinking approach and the methodologies. System thinking approach, with its focus on boundary, perspective and relationship, perspectives and relationships, organizations can conduct more holistic and insightful evaluations. And methodologies like SSM, CSH, and VSM provide frameworks to address the complex issues. And when is this approach ideal? This approach is ideal when complex training evaluations, where multiple stakeholders with various different perspectives and interconnected factors are in play. Then is when you will bring in the system thinking approach.
Ma'am, I hope that, ma'am, these are covered in our textbook. I hope that, ma'am, it is there.
It's all covered in your textbooks. As I said, I have used methodology which are only covered in your textbook. So they're all there. If you want me to tell you which page, I could, I think, yeah, it's page number 55, 56,
57.
Correct. So they're all there. It's very briefly given. There are no examples given. So I thought, I'll help you with these examples so that you understand when you read the book, it will give you more clarity and simplify it for you. Okay. Next is the action. I'm just looking at the time. 11:15. Okay. Maybe we should be able to do the action research approach. So the next approach is the action research approach. This was developed by Kurt Lewin in 1946 and is a pioneering methodology that integrates theory and practice to solve real-world problems. So what does Lewis say? So Lewis' approach emphasizes on collaboration between researchers and practitioners to bring about change while also contributing to knowledge. It's also described as a cyclic process. So if you see, it's a cyclic process of planning, action, and reflection. So if you see, it's just the approach is different, but the explanation for each is very same. So under planning, the stage involves identifying the problem, collaboratively developing the plan of action to address it. The plan should be based on a thorough understanding of the problem and should involve stakeholders who are directly affected by it. So even when you are planning, you involve the stakeholders at this stage itself. The next is the action. This stage involves implementing the planned interventions. So the action is taken to resolve the identified issues, and the efforts of the action are monitored and recorded. So that's the action. Observation. This stage is about observing the results of the action, gathering the data on its effectiveness. It involves analyzing the outcomes, gathering feedback, understanding the impact of the intervention. Finally, reflection. Reflection involves analyzing the collected data, assessing whether the intervention was successful or not. It includes discussions on what worked, what didn't work, and what further changes or adjustments are needed. So there is also a feedback loop. If you see, they're all connected. So there is the feedback loop. The outcome of reflection phase may indicate need for further action. So, and leading to a new cycle of planning. So that's the feedback. So once it's a loop. So it's not that, so it's all interconnected. Based on that, you go through that cyclic approach. And that's why it's called the cyclic approach as well. Okay, on that, let's move on to the next one, which is the appreciative inquiry approach. I'm going a little fast because it's just that the terminologies is different, but the overall crux of it is same. The appreciative inquiry approach is a strength-based, positive approach to organizational change and development. So instead of focusing on problem, here AI seeks to identify, when I say AI, it is appreciative inquiry. So appreciative inquiry seeks to identify what is working well and build on these trends. So there are two models. There is a 4D model and there is a newer 5D model. Your textbook has covered 4D model, but I will briefly cover the 5D. There's another D involved. So there is 5D model as well. Okay. So I'll focus more on the 4D model because that's what is given in your book. So 4D model, it involves 4 phases, which is discovery, dream, design, and destiny. And what happens in discovery? The discovery phase is all about identifying and appreciating the best of what currently exists within the organization. It involves uncovering strengths, successes, peak experiences. Employees and stakeholders are asked to share good stories, examples of when the organization has been at its best. Am I making sense? It's the discovery, and you only ask, you do rapid interviews, you give them questionnaires, share experiences of when they feel the organization was at peak. So if you talk to people, they say, yeah, that was the golden era. So when people share experiences of when they thought that things were at the best. So that's the phase. You will talk to people, you will identify. The dream phase is forward looking and focuses on envisioning what it could be. You found out when people thought was the best time, and then you build on, and next is the forward looking focus on envisioning what could it be from whatever you've heard. It builds on the strengths identified in the discovery phase to create a shared vision of what the ideal future should be. This phase encourages participants to think creatively and boldly about possibilities. And next is design. The design phase translates dream into actionable steps. So now you know what the dream is, how to reach that dream. It involves creating structure, system, processes that will support the realization of the shared vision. Finally is destiny. The destiny phase is about implementing the changes and sustaining momentum. So once you do training or once you do something, it happens. But how do you continue? How will it be long run? What will it be how will you ensure that the momentum doesn't end? It involves putting the plan from design phase into action and ensuring that the organization remains committed to the positive changes. Yes, Ravi.
Ma'am, there was just one query. It is based on this line of study. Ma'am, as far as I can see, like most of the models that we are talking about as of now, or approaches that we are talking about of now, they're almost interlinked. Like I can see some shades of, let us say, the ADDIE model in the action plan approach, action research approach, or maybe the system thinking approach that we're talking about. It is something related to the systematic evaluation method. So, मैम कहने का मतलब है कि more or less every models are almost similar, apart from certain aspects which can be different or maybe new or added. But I want to say मैम कि अगर हम लोग एग्जाम में जैसे हमारा जब like पेपर आता है, right? So there are questions like which model are you going to apply or which model you going to prefer. So मैम for example ये जो हम लोग ये जो question पूछा जाता है कि which model you're going to apply, is it from the perspective of the popularity, like you said just now, that Kurt Lewin method is one of the most like fundamental or maybe the most studied method of approach. So कहने का मतलब मैम जब हम लोग आंसर कर रहे हैं क्वेश्चंस को, तो should we keep on mind about the most popular or maybe the most basic fundamental approaches when we mention it down in our answer sheets? I hope you got the question, ma'am.
No, I understood. So, see, it is Kirkpatrick is widely used, but I think you should prepare yourself with two or three models which you are very confident about, and then you can talk about two or three different models in the exam, not just Kirkpatrick. Though Kirkpatrick is widely used, I recommend that you keep two or three models more. Prepare yourself well, because there are certain things like now if you see dreams, say this particular appreciative inquiry model, you may not know this may not work for a normal. If there is a culture issue, the company which was doing well suddenly is not doing well, then your Kirkpatrick training evaluation will not help. You have to bring in appreciative inquiry approach. So this is more for your knowledge. From your exams perspective, I would say that keep two or three models that you are very confident with to write about, and then you can use them.
So, ma'am, wouldn't it be wise for the curriculum also, and for the institute also, to at least introduce a limitation aspect to every approach? Like if there is any limitation, so that can be highlighted at the end of every context or every like topic, so that at least people can be aware that these are the limitations of this particular model, or this particular limitation can be achieved through different model.
We did discuss the scenarios last week. So we did speak about what works well for which model. So there are no limitations to each model. The model just covers that aspect of it. So if you see this appreciative inquiry model, it only focuses on improving what was good and building on it. So every model, either it could be a little and they could be overlapped, or they cover something new. Some talk about success factors, some talk about how things didn't go well. Some talk about each phase, how should you evaluate. So the objective of each model is very different. So you cannot say that this is a limitation, or you can't just say that just do these two. So the reason that this is so vast and we would want you to get exposed to different evaluation models is so that you broaden your horizon. Because anybody, you talk to any trainer or anybody who's in the field, when you talk about evaluation, the only thing that they bring up is Kirkpatrick. They don't talk about anything else. And that's not because nothing else works, but because people don't know. They don't know that there are different models that exist and there is something that they can do. And that's where I think it's very important for us to understand different models, different methods, because they're all tried and tested. It's all backed by science. So, people have done research on it, and then you build on it and say, why not we try this? Because it's given by some experts in the industry. So, and that's where you're broadening your horizon at this point. From exams perspective, as I said, having, two or three could work. But that's separate. I don't think we should look only from exams perspective, but look at it from how you are enhancing your career, because I think end of the day, that's the overall objective, right? You want to move from point A to point B after doing this program.
Right, ma'am.
Look at it from that way, and not
Okay, ma'am.
just from the book
Understood.
perspective or exam. But yeah, I think I did answer 2 or 3 models would be good enough for your exams.
Right, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure. So I think, yeah, destiny phase I spoke about. So that's the appreciative inquiry. And I did tell you that there is the 5D model. The 5D model just adds one at the beginning, which is the definition. So the whole 4 remains the same. It's an extension of 4D model. The additional step is definition, which comes before discovery. So this phase involves clarifying the topic or focus for the inquiry. It sets the scope. Otherwise, people will talk about, if you ask me what went well or which was the best stage, I can tell you 10 different things. But here, to narrow it down, they've added the definition phase where they say what was good in this aspect. So you create a definition and then ask people the questions. So that's the 5D model. I think this is the last model I have. Maybe I'll quickly cover this. I had a quiz for you all. Maybe I'll give you that quiz. I think in Accenture, we were using the LTEM model. It's not part of your book, but I thought I will talk about the LTEM model. It's something new and organizations are using LTEM model. So what LTEM does is it consists of 8 levels or tiers of evaluation, and it's organized progressively from the simplest measurements like learner attendance and satisfaction to a more meaningful assessment of learning, transfer, and impact. So as an organization, you could either be at tier 1, tier 2, level 8. If you reach a level 8, it's like the best. So for every training program, you can do it. So either you are if you are at tier 1, you're only doing attendance. So that's the attendance bit, which is level 0. That is, no, I think level 1. Yeah, that's level 1. The next is activity. So at this level, participation, what are you gauging? Whether participants, whether there is participation in learning activities are tracked. There could be some activities. Are they getting tracked? Are you, if there is role playing done during the workshop, are they tracking it? Are you scoring them, saying that who did well in role play, who didn't do well in role play? So that's the activity bit. So that's the level 2. Level 3 is learning perception. Do I see something on the chat? You can use, but I think you can use LTEM in maybe as an add-on. But I think it's more for you to know. I would recommend that you keep this for enhancing your knowledge than for your exam. For exam, use models that are discussed in the book. I would recommend that. Okay. So level 3 is learner perception. So here, this level measures satisfaction, learner satisfaction, and their perception of training. It often includes feedback on the content, delivery, and the training effectiveness. 4th is knowledge. So here you check how good the knowledge, did the knowledge acquisition happen well? Is it measuring? Can you check, are you checking whether people remember what you've trained them on? So that's the knowledge bit of it. The next level is the decision making or competence level. Here, for the level 5, which is how well the learners can apply the knowledge, and whether they have made and whether they are able to make decisions in real life situations. And how can you figure that out? That could be with the when you see when you talk to the supervisors, or if you see a big change post the training, that's when you know that they are able to make more decisions, and that's the level. The next level is task competence, which evaluates learners' ability to perform tasks and apply skills either in a real or a simulated environment. It assesses whether the training has prepared them to do their jobs more effectively. So what we do to check task competence in Accenture is, when we were evaluating through this model, we would give them projects. So it's a simulated situation. So how would they do in that project? So that could be task competence. Transfer to work, whether the focus is here, the focus is on measuring whether the learners are transferring their new skills and knowledge to actual job performance. And the last level is the result, the impact. Then, I think, yeah, I did cover, transfer and effects of transfer. Yes. So this level measures the impact of training on organizational outcomes, such as productivity, did retention, or maybe did people get promoted after your training, customer satisfaction. So these are the different levels that you have in LTIM. So what you see on the screen is different models that we've discussed today with focus and application. I'll also quickly paste a link to the quiz that I want you all to take up. I know we are over time, is it? Is the time? It's right on time, but I think I will give you a minute to take up that quiz. There are about 5 or 6 questions. Just go through the slide and I'll give you the Okay, let me know if you're all able to access the quiz. Okay, no, I think I pasted it. 1 minute. Did you all get the link to the question? Yeah, just see if you're all able to access it. There are about 8 or 9 questions. Yeah, 9 questions. Quickly fill it. And maybe we can start in the next week by discussing these answers. And that's maybe the homework for you all if you want to take it. Otherwise, next week we will discuss these questions, 9 questions. And that's how we will start our next class. Next Sunday, I'm not available, but we will continue the week after next.
Sure, ma'am.